video, we'll share the important things you need to know about creating strong characters, ones that readers can identify with and care about.
And at the end, I'm going to share the 3 main faults that authors make when they're writing characters. Hi, I'm Talia Newland, the Managing Editor at AIA Publishing.
And I'm Rose Newland, the book designer and publishing assistant at AIA Publishing. So good characters make a huge difference to the success of a novel. What's something that authors really need to keep in mind when creating their characters?
I think the most important thing is don't make them perfect.
It's not relatable at all.
Not relatable at all, no, that's right. And they come across as two-dimensional, so you've got to make sure your main characters has some faults or some weaknesses or at least some personal challenges. And to make sure that they are three-dimensional, the author has to have them fully fleshed out in their own mind.
So what's a good way of coming up with ideas for realistic characters?
I think imagery is good, like maybe a photo of someone that looks interesting, that can help. Or just looking at normal, ordinary people. People
Basing them off people you know?
Well, no, it's usually not a good idea that it's people you know.
Oh, why not?
Well, it could be, but you want to change them enough that they don't recognise themselves.
Loosely base it off Aunt Marge, though.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. But a lot of authors like to go to cafes and watch people. You know, like they'll sit there with their pen and pad and paper and just like watch people. And sometimes, you know, you'll just see this person and they will just seem interesting and you can imagine then what their background could be. For instance, when I lived in Sydney and I used to drive through White Bay, there was always this really ancient lady on the edge of the road who sold newspapers, and when the cars stopped at the lights, she'd come up and people would buy their newspapers, and she was always there, right?
Different time in the world, people.
Yeah, but I just found her absolutely fascinating because she was so old, she was really skinny, and she wore, get a load of this, a mini kilt and white bobby socks. Every day.
It was just to make sure people noticed her so they didn't run her over.
I know, but what a great character. And I used to try and imagine where did she live and what was her background, and you know, why did she wear a mini skirt when she was so old? You know, it was just fascinating. So yeah.
So what should you not do when creating a character?
Don't make your central character, your protagonist, unlikable.
Oh, yeah. Give them flaws, but not too many flaws. They need redeeming qualities.
They need redeeming qualities. They need to be people that the readers like to hang out with. Like I've seen negative reviews on books where the readers just say, I can't stand the characters. They don't like characters who are whiny. Characters who consistently make stupid mistakes. You know, like if your whole plot is based on your character making really dumb decisions, that it's just not going to fly.
Yeah,
you know,
the readers get really frustrated.
They get really frustrated. It's like, and especially if you portray someone as being intelligent, and then they do something really stupid that an intelligent person would never do, and readers pick up on that sort of thing, and it really annoys them. So whiny, shallow. People don't like shallow characters, you know, sort of really flippant, and people that are so mouthy that they come across as just really constantly aggressive and angry. Like in some genres, like urban fantasy, snark is a thing, you know. People like to have a bit of snark in there.
A bit of banter.
Yeah, but if you overdo it, then they just come across as really nasty.
But the bad guys are going to be unlikable.
Oh yeah, of course. You know, I'm talking about your protagonist, your central character, your point of view characters, or your main ones. Obviously, your bad guys going to be unlikable.
They can be dumb and snarky.
They can be horrible, but the reader's not going to spend most time with them. And because readers have to care about the characters. And I think it's really good for an author to say to themselves, why should readers care about this person? You know, they need a reason to care. And usually if the character is relatable so people can imagine that they are that character.
Which is a big reason
They
why
care.
you need flaws.
Yeah, because nobody's perfect.
Yeah. If I was writing a novel, how could I go about creating characters for it?
Well, I think there's two ways. One is to uncover them and the other is to build them.
Like dig them out of the earth?
Dig them out of your imagination.
Ah.
No, when you uncover a character, it's like they already are there in your mind. The whole story is already there in your mind. When you work that way, you have the sense that the story exists somewhere, even if it's only imagination, as a complete thing, that these characters are real, their story is real, and what you're doing is uncovering the story and telling it. So it's not so much that you're building it up from scratch, from somewhere. It's more that it's there and you just have to get it and uncover it. Stephen King works this way, and in his book on writing, he said that it's like being an archaeologist.
Oh.
So, you carefully...
I was thinking.
Yeah, you uncover some bones, and then your task is to uncover the whole thing. Yeah. So that's...
And also then fill in the blanks.
Yeah. So in this way of working, if you're uncovering your story, uncovering your character, you have to delve deeply into that creative space. You have to be in that state where you can see the character as if you were there in the scene looking at them. And you start by looking at them from outside and going, yes, they've got brown hair, blue eyes, they're tall, they wear this, they wear that, that sort of thing. And note that down. You need to note it down at some point just so that you're consistent, because otherwise you might write them with blonde hair in one scene and they've got brown hair later on, right? And you have to look at how they are acting in the scene that you've got in your mind. Are they courageous, for instance? Are they caring about other people? Are they selfish? Whatever. And you're seeing it in your mind's eye. It's not like you're creating it. It's more like you're just observing something that's already there.
You're watching TV.
Yeah. And when I wrote my books, it was always like the story was running through my head like a movie. So if that's the kind of way you work, then this is how you do it. And after you've looked at them from the outside, then you go into the character. You become the character in your mind, and then you can ask them about themselves. So while you're within the character, you kind of got to go, this was my background, and I've got 2 brothers, and at school I was bullied, and you can just bring all that stuff up. Some people actually talk to their characters, so imaginatively they're there as the author, and the character's out there, and they say, okay, tell me about yourself. And then the character just tells them. And, things...
No, I think you were bullied in school. No, I don't think I was. No,
Yeah.
I think you were.
Yeah.
Because I need it for this plot point. I'm like, no, I think I punched the bullies in the face. Oh, damn, you're right. That's way better.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. And it can be really valuable to talk to your characters because they will surprise you. And you can have this concept of who this character is, but when you start to talk to them like that, you'll find other things that come up that you never thought of, and they are always right. You cannot, you cannot
Character is always right.
If you try and override them, then somehow the integrity of the story is kind of lost. You can leave out bits of the story. You don't have to write that. But if a character says, no, I wasn't bullied, I punched them in the face, and you want someone who's bullied, it's not going to work.
It's not going to work.
No.
So that's uncovering a character. So what would you call building a character?
Building a character is for authors who work more from an external space, more from they work more from their logical mind than going deeply into some sort of creative space. And in that instance, mostly people use a character description sheet and they'll just fill it in. So it'll have, name, age, physical description, family background, marital status, where they live, details about their house, what their house shows about them, their likes, their dislikes, their personal challenges, all of these kind of things. So as you fill in these forms, all the things that you need to think about to know your character fully are written on the form, and you just have to fill them in. So you can build your character that way. And it's still an imaginative process because you're creating this character. So that's building.
So what would you say is the best way to create characters, uncovering them or building them?
Well, as an author, personally, I uncover my stories. I always have the sense that they exist as real people. But I do find that at a certain point in the story, I need to write the things down, just so that I'm consistent. So I will, and usually this comes to me at the editing stage. So when I first write, I just write and I know the character, like I know them in my mind, but I haven't pulled out all of those things and like written them down. So at some point I do that, but I don't start that way.
Yeah.
So I think there is a crossover and a combination of those two ways of working. So somebody could start with building and then they could find themselves falling into the character. In fact, I hope they do fall into the character, because you really need to be in the character to write an engaging story.
So the central character, the protagonist, should be likeable or relatable. So what kind of characters do readers generally like to read about?
Right. They like people who are decent, or who are trying to be decent, people who are trying to do the right thing. Yeah. They like characters that are, have a light-hearted side, but aren't flippant. They care about people other than themselves, or at least they grow into that as part of the story. They have some sort of endearing characteristics, like they might have unusual clothing choices, like a miniskirt and bobby sock. They have the kinds of challenges that normal people have, like maybe lacking self-confidence, unsure of themselves, a difficult relationship with their mother, an annoying sibling.
Some kind of relatable, everyday character flaw. Even if they're a super fantasy heroine saving the world, they've still got like some relatable characteristics.
That's right. If you're writing about robots and stuff, they still have to have human characteristics, otherwise they don't relate to readers. I think readers like characters who are honest as well, honest at least to themselves, honest about their issues. Characters that grow as the story progresses.
That's a big one.
Yeah, well, they should. They need to grow. If your characters don't grow through the story,
you don't have a character arc and they don't change by the end of the book.
That's right. And I think readers like characters that are courageous, people who will fight for what they think is right. And I call those kind of characters noble characters. I love noble characters.
There's also books that have anti-heroes though. And you'll have characters who are like very flawed, and yet somehow you still like and relate to them. Yeah. They're not necessarily noble or empathetic or quirky or any of those things that you just listed. Like I think the anti-hero is something that is becoming more popular these days as well. So that's something to...
Yes, but I bet you...
a little bit more difficult to do, but they've always got some kind of redeeming quality that sort of relates.
I bet they still care about the people close to them.
Yeah.
It's like even Dr. No had a cat that he stroked. James Bond. Wrong era, she has no idea what I'm talking about. Like even so, they may not be wanting to save the world, but they're probably still...
There's still something they care about.
Yeah.
So what are the 3 most common faults authors need to avoid when writing characters?
Don't tell the reader every detail about the character. You as the author need to know every detail, right? But the reader doesn't need to know anything that doesn't relate to the story. So for instance, if they had a bald cat when they were a child, that is not relevant unless it relates to an animal in the present or relates to some challenge that they have in the present relating to a bald person or something, you know what I mean? Yeah. So
well, the fact that they were bullied in school isn't relevant unless they are dealing with that
the same kind of issues as an adult.
And it's also like not telling everything about the character in like the first chapter when you first meet them kind of thing as well.
Yeah, well, that's the second one. So first, don't feel that you've got to tell the reader everything about. You've got to leave a little bit to the imagination, a little bit of mystery. And the second one is don't tell them everything about the character when you first introduce them.
You want to uncover sort of things as you go along.
Yeah, it's a real rookie mistake. I often get manuscripts where the author introduces the character and we get their whole history. Yeah, we get their background, and it's like saying, oh, George comes in the door and he's tall and he's got blue eyes and he's carrying a bag and his mother does this and his father does this and he works it there and he lives here, you know, and it's like, well,
he just walked in a room.
He just walked in the room. Yeah, exactly. So don't sort of dump all that information.
Exposition.
Exactly. So don't just dump that information all in a chunk on the reader. If it's important things that the reader needs to know, then you pass it out during the story at the point where it's relevant. And the third one is don't tell about your character, show them. So like never say something like, you know, George has anger issues, or George has a chip on his shoulder and, you know, has trouble dealing with people. Show that in a scene. You know, it's like the way someone walks into a room, the way they deal with people shows those things. So there's no need to tell.
Goes back to the writing tip, which is show, don't tell.
Yes, and I mean that comes through everything, but it is something that especially beginner writers tend to fall into. They think, oh, and I've got to introduce this character and I've got to, you know, make sure that they're an all-rounded character and that the reader knows everything about them, and no. So that's the three.
The readers don't need to know everything.
Yes.
You need to know everything as the author.
Yeah.
Don't dump all the information on the reader at the beginning of the book. You want to uncover all the information about the character as you go through and reveal it when it's necessary.
Yep.
And you want to also show their character traits and not tell them.
Exactly. Yeah.
Did I get a gold star?
Sure, 5 out of 5. So that's it for our discussion on creating characters. I hope you learned something there. This is part of our novel writing tips series, an author's journey from conception to publication. And there will be more, so make sure you hit our subscribe button and the little bell so you get notified when we have a new video coming up.
And thumbs ups and stuff.
Yeah, all of that. Thanks for watching.
Bye!